Jean Piaget's Cognitive Development Theory by Laurie Montero. Jean Piaget was a clinical psychologist who observed how children develop as they mature. He was a pioneer in the study of child development, and he studied cognitive development, which is the process of acquiring intelligence and increasingly advanced thought and problem-solving ability from infancy to adulthood. He stated that children reason differently as their bodies grow and as their minds grow, and should not be thought of as miniature adults. Here's a picture of Jean Piaget, the Swiss clinical psychologist who was born in 1896. He said that knowledge is the ability to modify, transform, and operate on an object or idea such that it is understood by the operator through the process of transformation. And that's what he studied, the transformation of child behavior. Piaget is famous for his cognitive stages of development. There are 4, and this is what we will learn today. The first stage of development is called the sensory motor stage, from birth to 2 years old. The second stage is the pre-operational stage. This is for 2 to 7 years old. The third stage is the concrete operational stage. That's from 7 to 11 years old. And the final stage is the formal operational stage, and that's from adolescence to adulthood. Now, these ages can be adjusted slightly. They're not hard rules because every child develops a little differently. The sensory motor stage is the first stage, and it's from birth to 2 years. This phase is called sensory phase because the child is using his senses, sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing, to understand the world around him. That's why you'll see babies always putting things in their mouth, because they're totally using all of their senses. At this stage, the baby is very active, learning to move. He's really learning about himself and his environment and has an innate tendency to adapt to his environment. This stage is characterized as egocentric, which just means that the baby or toddler has no ability to reason morally. They're not making decisions based on morality. An example that a child is manipulating the parents, sometimes people will say that to give them what they want, is really not accurate because they don't have the ability to reason at this stage. The next stage is the pre-operational stage, and this is for children between roughly 2 and 7 years of age. He's broken this down into 2 stages. First, around the age of 2 to 4, the child is grasping language and beginning to use words as symbols. They are actively engaged in pretend play. So the second part of the pre-operational stage is between 4 and 7 years old. At this stage, they've heard words and sounds, but they're better able to understand that the words that they're learning have meaning, which helps them understand the world around them. They are able to sort blocks, and they're successful when ideas are concrete ideas. Piaget described a theory of conservation, which describes the child's ability to think logically, where until around 4, logical thinking is not present, but starts developing between 4 and 7. The theory of conservation allows us to see the logical process that is present in a child age 4 to 7. Please watch the following illustration of this theory of conservation. In front of you filled with water?
Yes.
Do you think that that's the same amount of water?
No.
Look at it again. Okay, it's pretty much the same, right? Pretty close, almost exact. Okay, so it's exactly the same, or pretty much. Now look, and let's see what happens when I pour this into this bigger cup. Okay, now tell me, which one has more?
This one.
Or that? This one has more inside of it? How come?
Because the cup is bigger and this one's smaller.
Okay, thank you very much. The third stage is the concrete operational stage, which takes place around 7 to 11 years of age. At this stage, the child begins to understand abstract thoughts. Their intelligence shifts from just symbolic to logical, and they begin to learn how to reason. They are capable of mental operations as well as moral reasoning and empathy. One of the important processes that develops is that of reversibility, which refers to the ability to recognize that numbers or objects can be changed and returned to their original condition. For example, during this stage, a child understands that a favorite ball that deflates is not gone, but can be filled with air again and put back into play. The formal operation stage is the last and the most complex stage, and it starts at teenage all the way through adulthood. At this formal operation stage and the top level of development, the teenager or adult is able to think rationally and understand different viewpoints. They have the ability to think systematically and understand abstract and complex ideas such as love, politics, probability, and possibilities. They also have a solid moral reasoning and understand consequences fully. Their thinking is much more sophisticated. Jean Piaget said, "The principal goal of education in the schools should be creating men and women who are capable of doing new things, not simply repeating what other generations have done." For his time, I think this statement is so forward-thinking, and I just agree with it so much. Let's learn new things, always be learning new things, and not simply repeating the same things that everybody else has done. So that concludes our lesson today on Piaget's theory of cognitive development. In thinking back to our lesson, this is your question and assignment. Number 1, think about this. Do you think that Jean Piaget was ahead of his time in his theories, which were created so long ago? Or do you think that his theories are no longer applicable to modern society in the way that we live and the things that we do? I would like to hear from you. Think about that and let me know. The second thing is, go ahead, find a child or adolescent that you know and test one of his theories based on one of the 4 stages that were discussed today, according, of course, to the child's age. Do that and let me know how that works for you as well. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you have learned about Piaget's cognitive development. And please get back to me, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much.